You're listening to the Vetted VA podcast, Your Journey Home. Nathan Nottingham is your host today, and he'll be chatting with Gary Foote.
Hey there, welcome back to the Vetted VA podcast, Your Journey Home. You know, in this series where we are interviewing the men and women that are the professionals that make up the Vetted VA moderators, the people that are behind the scenes, kind of actively engaging our community, you'll find them on vettedva.com. I have learned something about each one of them, and each one of them was not a stranger to me before these conversations. So I'm excited to hear what I will learn today as we discuss real estate, realtor extraordinaire Gary Foote, located in Tennessee, came to us a couple years ago. He's one of those guys that you meet him in person, you're like, holy smokes, you're like 6'3". He's a really tall guy. He's got a big smile and a heart of gold and a really soft tone, but man, he knows his stuff deeply. So, Gary, thank you for being on with me. Thank you for joining me on the podcast. I'm excited to kind of get to know you more. Yeah, of course. Hey, you joined VetaVA, gosh, almost three, I think about 3 years ago. And when you came to us through a connection, you were not living in Tennessee at the time, if I remember correctly. You were elsewhere, and a realtor. You came highly recommended to somebody who you would help move your clients. You would spend time. Gosh, you would go above and beyond for people, and that was just kind of the community knew you in that way, and you came recommended that way. Is like, man, this guy just shows up when he's needed. And I found that to be very true. You have a great background of service. And so I'd love to get to know you more. Like, where are you coming from? How'd you get into real estate? Why are you the way you are, Gary?
I don't know if we have that much time, but we'll see what we can do.
All right, good.
Yeah. Well, I've been in Vetted VA, I think about 3 years without getting kicked out. Now, I was in previously and I got kicked out. But so I've been working in real estate and also in mortgages for about 15 years now. And really what happened was it coincided with a really difficult time in my own life. I was living in South Carolina at the time, and we had a 4-year-old, and my wife was pregnant with her second. And this is, or I guess our second. And this was right in 2009. So just the world in the United States specifically was going through time of financial transition. I was working at the time as a youth pastor, and that required my wife to work full-time as well, just to make ends meet. Mm-hmm. We were really passionate about helping specifically high school students. Our home was always open. It was always filled with lots of different people. We loved that. And as the economy struggled, I lost one of my jobs. I was working 2 jobs. I worked both as a high school youth minister and as a campus minister for a high school as well. Well, the campus ministry job, they could no longer afford that. And so I lost that job. And then my wife, she let her company know that she was expecting, and they let her go the following week. So we essentially lost about 70% of our income within a week's time span. And we're just really distraught. We were young. We were 24 and 25. And we didn't know what we were going to do. And I tried the best as I could to be a good husband and a supportive husband to a pregnant wife. And so that meant that I would walk outside at night when I wasn't feeling the strongest and at my best, so that I could just kind of decompress and not show the worry, because I didn't want to add more worry to her. But the truth was I was in a tough spot. And so there was one night I went outside. It's about 11 o'clock at night. And I was trying to figure out, what we were going to do. And I decided that we were going to need to sell our home because we just couldn't afford it. And so we couldn't afford it. We were going to sell our home. We were going to lick our wounds and move cross country to be close to family for that support, because we were just kind of beaten up at that point. And as I was out there, I noticed that the neighbor across the street was outside smoking as well. I wasn't smoking, but he was smoking. And he just kind of looked at me. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing up?" And I said, "Oh, worrying. What are you doing up?" And he said, "Working." I was like, "Working?" And he's like, "Yeah, I work in real estate. So just out here taking a smoke break before I get back to it." And so I crossed the street and we started talking a little bit, shared with him about our situation. And he put his hand on my shoulder and he just looked at me. He's like, I got you. And I said, well, what do you mean? He's like, we'll get through this. Like, I'll help you. Now, we had always been neighborly up until that point, but there was never, I got you between either of us. And
Yeah.
in that moment, there was a sense of peace and support that I really felt. And it was something that always lasted with me, where I thought, gosh, I really have somebody who's going to have my back. And so we worked together, as you know, being in the industry as long as you have as well. That was a really tough time to sell. Like, things weren't flying off the shelves.
Yeah.
And so,
Wow.
we got the house for sale. We ended up having to borrow about $5,000 to end up closing the transaction. But really, that wasn't all that bad compared to what some people were going through at the time. And we moved cross country, and I always remember that kindness that was there in that moment. And even though here I was as the full-time minister and thinking about what ministry looked like and having a preconceived notion of that, like being specifically at a church or at a school, I was really being served by my neighbor who I have no idea if he had a religious affiliation. I had no idea where he stood with his faith, but I knew that he had a genuine heart and he wanted to serve. And he went above and beyond to the point of inviting my family to come stay with them, immediately after the closing until things were organized for us to be able to move cross country. And so that was really what put a little bit of consideration for getting into the business into my heart. Was I thought, gosh, there's a way to serve people authentically and genuinely that doesn't necessarily always meet what my preconceived notions were before of how do you serve people. I had a really, I think, limited mindset of what that looked like, and he broadened my horizon on that. So that's really the origin story of how I first considered getting into real estate. And so we moved cross country from South Carolina to California. And during that time, my wife had the baby. We started kind of moving forward with life. And unfortunately, my son had some medical issues that were pretty significant. And for anyone that's ever had significant medical issues, that it's not just significant with your health, but it's significant with your finances.
Yep.
and,
Yeah.
and so we were faced with that again. And so I was working again as a youth pastor in Southern California. And it just got to the point where I just couldn't afford it. I just simply couldn't afford to support the medical needs of my family, and being gone nights and weekends all the time, like wasn't able to support my wife and my kids the way that I needed to. And so it was just a real, hard look at our life and our lifestyle and say, what can I do to be able to continue to serve people, to help people? And not to be boastful, but I was pretty good at what I did. But when you're pretty good at what you do in a professional ministry setting, and I know that you and I have spoken about this a lot,
Yeah.
you don't really get a financial bonus because there's just no money available. And so it's just a matter of you get more responsibilities. And
Yeah,
so it's
exactly.
a matter of, gosh, Gary, you're really good at this. So we're going to add this, this, and this to your plate. And you're happy to do it. But at the same time, it doesn't meet your financial needs any, stronger for your family. So I ended up having to hang up that hat after 15 years. And that's how I got into full-time real estate. Was I went back and I thought about meeting my former neighbor who actually passed away a year after. We had kept in contact, but he had an aggressive cancer and passed away. And I just remembered, and the first couple of deals that I did were really to his legacy, and just thinking, you know what, this is a different perspective of how you can serve other people. And that was how I got into real estate. And then working with veterans is kind of evolved from there. So I was working at a real estate brokerage, and the real estate brokerage, the owner was a Marine veteran. He was an older guy. He was 80 years old and still showed up every day to work because I don't think he had anything better to do. And so he would show up. And a funny story about him, I always remember I invited him to come to an open house, and they had to take shoes off. He's 80 years old. So takes his shoes off, but lifts his pant leg up. He goes, I'm taking my shoe off, but not my gun. So I was like, that's fine, sir. So that was, you could take the man out of the Marine, but not the Marine out of the man, even though it's been probably 60 years since he was active duty. Yeah, well, that was pretty funny. So I was working within that company and started realizing that there were people that I aligned with ethically and morally, and there was a lot of people that I didn't. And
Mm,
so I
yeah.
just tried to stay in my lane. And then a young, recently discharged Marine showed up to the office. I think he intended to stay in for life, but I think his wife had different ideas once they start having kids. And he and I, we would just have water cooler talk, just talked every now and again. And he shared his experience. I had my first buyer that sounded like they could qualify for a VA loan. I said, you know what, let me give this guy, an opportunity. Maybe they can talk shop. Maybe there'll be some camaraderie there. And so I introduced them. The client instantly fell in love with them, and we were doing really well. I got the house sold. I was the real estate agent, and I was helping them to buy a new house. He was helping with the financing, and I get a call on closing. And at that time, answered my phone. I was in the grocery store, and it was the buyer's agent from the home that I was selling. And
Hmm.
the buyer's agent said, "Have you talked to your clients today?" I said, "Absolutely, I have. Like, confirmed closing. They're really excited. Thank you so much. Like, this was quite a doozy." And I said, "Yeah, but have you talked to them about them moving out?" And I was like, "I'm not following." I said, "Well, I'm here. They're not moved out. They are fully here in this house, and they're not moved out. And my client's U-Haul is showing up, at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning." I
Oh,
said,
wow.
"Okay, I'll be right there." So I drove over to the client's house. And I was like, "Guys, what are you doing?" They said, "We didn't think it was going to take as long to move as it actually did." And so I was like, "Oh my gosh, like this is nuts." I was like, "Okay, well," I called my wife, said, "Hey, I'm not going to be home tonight. I'm going to help these folks move." So I had my truck, I had some straps, and got going. And then the loan officer called me and to just kind of celebrate our first transaction together, saying, "Hey, there were some bumps along the way, but we smoothed it out. We closed on time. Like, isn't that great? Like, what are you going to do to celebrate?" And I said, "Well, not exactly what I intended, but I'm here packing and putting stuff in my truck, and it's going to be a long night because I'm moving them from one city to another. It's going to take at least 5 or 6 truckloads." And he
Oh,
said,
boy.
"Shoot me the address. I'll be right there." And
Oh,
so the loan officer came. He and I worked together until 5 in the morning, moving these folks. We called another buddy of ours that came and helped as well. And so the three of us brought our trucks. We went 5 or 6, trips back and forth. We cleaned their house up. We got everything done. We had to patch some walls and texture some walls during all this. And so it was a whole kind of ordeal. And so I went home, I showered, and I was back in the office at 8. And he did the same. And we just laughed at each other. We were pretty, I think, tired as well, just living off of coffee. And then he came into my office, and at that time, Vetted VA was a little bit like Fight Club, where the processes weren't in yet for vetting. It was trying to figure out, and so he walked into my office. He closed the door, and he said, "Hey, I'm a part of something that I think might really benefit from you being a part
hmm
of it as well, both for the people that we serve and then for the people that you'll connect with, because
hmm
I can see that you're genuine in what you're trying to do, and all the people that are connected with this organization are genuine in what they're trying to do." And that's how I ended up with Vetted VA.
I remember that story well, and I'll call on Brian for connecting us and being that Marine. It was a fun story to hear, but you hear those stories and then you want to see, are people really like that? And I will say, Gary, you were definitely like that. You show up, you ask good questions, you hold yourself and others accountable to the greater mission and the focus point. I mean, you've ranked up within our organization specifically, but outside of that, I don't want to talk about the Veta VA focal point. Really, I want to talk about you. You recently, then, a couple years ago, made a transition move as well, and you added to your baseline. So, you moved out of California, you went to Tennessee, you uprooted your family, moved them out too, and now you're operating in both states. Um, and I believe, right?
Yes.
I think that's kind
Yep.
of it's crazy, but I get it. Like, good for you. Like, why you made the move? You kind of became you had to find your own house in the middle of the chaos of post
Yep.
pandemic life, right? And it was like, Um, let's talk about that in the transition, and now starting everything you knew in California, this reputation you built there, now having to move it to another state and build a business back up out there. Like, how's that experience been?
It's been tough. Like, just being authentic about it, it's been really tough. The move was not planned, and
Mhm.
so now I have 4 kids. So we continue to expand. So I have 4 kids, and so in California, in particular, for anyone that was there during the pandemic, it was just a tough time. It was there was a
Mhm.
lot of restrictions. There are a lot of things that good, bad, or indifferent, you just couldn't do.
Yeah.
So it was just a
Yeah, yeah.
matter of doesn't really matter what your thoughts are. This is the way it is. And one of the things that took place during that time was the mandated homeschooling for about a year and a half is where it affected us in the area that we live. So my kids weren't allowed to go to school during that time, and my daughter, she did okay. She was all right. My boys, not so much. Like, they need to
Mm.
be throwing footballs and tackling people and interacting. They're all boy, if you will. Like, they just need to be around other kids. Like, that's just who they are. And so schools opened back up in August of 2022. And then in October of 2022, there was an announcement that was made that if you were not vaccinated, and this wasn't the COVID vaccine, this is just normal scheduled vaccines, you would not be able to attend schools anymore, whether it was private or public. And if you'll track back to my first move to California, you'll remember that we moved or that my son had these medical issues, which got me into real
Mhm.
estate. Well, part of his medical issues is that he can't receive the standard vaccinations, and so he wasn't going to be allowed to go to school any longer.
Oh, man.
Um, and we had talked to his medical team over the years, but they were like family. We had cell phone numbers of each other, and just had been through a lot. And they had really just told us, we're really sorry, but this is kind of the end of the line of what we're able to do. Like, there's no way to get around this. So
Mm.
there's no way to get around this, because you have to be at the very top of advocacy and going to the state and going before the state medical board. And like, just being quite frank with you, we can't support you in that and continue to do our practice. And we understood that. We understood that, like, these doctors had become like family, like I mentioned, and we've been through so much together, and
Wow.
um, many procedures and hospital stays, and all sorts of different things and emergencies together. And so we couldn't ask that of them either, to risk their livelihood in order to see if they would be willing to fight with us to see if my son could continue to go to school. So we started looking at different options, and in particular, Tennessee, which is where I am right now, it didn't have those restrictions, and so we were able to move. But um, it was tough, and not only was it
Yeah.
tough, I'm sure that you can relate to this and appreciate this, but um, again, like, I try to strive to do the best at everything that I do. So I was a top producer in California in real estate, and I was really good at what I did. And so I knew what needed to happen in order to sell our home for top dollar in the limited amount of time that we had. And so as I was doing it, my wife sat me down and said, "You're phenomenal in real estate, but you're kind of a jerk as a husband right now." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" She's like, "You're making me take all of our pictures off the wall, and we had to paint kind of
Um,
neutral colors and all the personality." Because my wife's a Southern girl from New Orleans, so she's got
yeah.
lots of personality. And it was funny because it gave that perspective again of, when someone hires you to do something, you want to do an excellent job, but you also want to make sure that you're connecting with them on a human level. And so it was that moment
Hmm.
of saying, "Gosh, this is a good reminder," because I'll go in and say, "Take these pictures down, clean this up. Like, can we rearrange this? Can we declutter a little bit?"
Mhm.
And what it comes down to is, gosh, my home is part of my family. Like, this is really where we live. This is really where we thrive. And so it was that reminder again of a home is just so much more than shelter. I know that we can think about it as an investment, as a shelter, but if we really
Yeah.
get down to it, that's just not the case. And that again sparked that passion that I have for helping people to get into homes, because I'm like, it just means so much more. Like, it just changes so much. And
Well,
so,
you
yep.
Well, I'm just interrupting there because you made the move, you got through that, and then you added lending. You actually went
Hmm.
and got your NMLS license,
That's right.
National Mortgage License and Systems Registry. But wh- why did you add that then if you were so good at real estate? What was your thinking behind becoming more holistic in the process?
I try to figure out when's the worst time to get into any industry, and so I timed it perfect with real estate. So then I thought, "What the heck? Things are horrible in mortgage right now. Let me add that too."
Yeah, yeah.
I'm a glutton for punishment, apparently. Uh, truthfully, it was actually somewhat of a conversation with Brian, the same guy
Hmm,
that got me
mhm,
into Vet
mhm.
VA. We were talking, and he had just asked. He's like, you're really good at seeing the bigger picture and putting puzzles together. Maybe
Mhm.
this is something that you might want to think about because he understood that real estate is very hyper local, which it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now, even keeping my broker's license active in California, I fly back. I fly back and I meet with people for listings and for home inspections. And, I fly back and meet with those folks. And I just had a closing yesterday where I flew back 3 times for those folks, and so,
Wow.
but I promised to take care of them. They were old clients, and they called me and said, "Will you help me?" And I explained the situation. They said, We want to work with you. That's okay. We'll work with you." So on the real estate front, it's mostly I kept that because as I talked to my former clients, they asked, what will we do moving forward if we need something? And I said, well, if you're willing to work with me, then I'm willing to work with you. I'll make it work. So I don't advertise anymore in California for real estate because I want to make sure that I'm serving people as best as I can. So if it's a former client or a family or friend of them that wants to work with me, then I work with them.
That's
If
awesome.
it's not, then I explain, my limitations of being 2,000 miles away and ask them, is that, going to be in your best interest, or would you rather interview other people as well? So just giving them that choice and being transparent up front it was important. So I added mortgages. And I love it. Like, I love the puzzles. I love figuring things out. And
Mhm.
my formal education is in theology and philosophy. And particular in philosophy, it teaches you how to think and how to think outside the box. And so
Mhm.
that's been super fun at times. And it becomes something like an Achilles heel in a certain sense because I'll go down these rabbit holes, but I'll be able to find out situations where someone might have been told a no that I can find a yes. And so
Yeah.
that's really fun. So in particular, I had something about 2 months ago where there's a veteran that was moving from California actually to Tennessee, and his real estate agent called me and said, "Hey, there's this person was turned down twice, and they said that they were turned down specifically because the VA just will not guarantee this loan." And so I was like, well, if you're willing to give me a shot, then I'd like to look at it. So I looked at everything and I saw something. I was like, it's not that they're saying no, they're just not saying yes. And
Yep.
that's the philosophy part of me coming out. And so I went directly to the regional loan center and talked to them, and I got a no there. And I said, let me talk to your supervisor. And I got a no there. I said, no, I still don't think this is right. And I just kept pushing. I said, this is why. And they're like, well, you're not wrong. So they wouldn't say I'm
Mhm.
wrong or I'm right, but no, you're not wrong. No, you're not wrong. And then finally I got to the third person. They said, you know what? We can't deny this loan because there's no reason to deny it based on what you're sharing with us. So we're going to go ahead and guarantee it. And so I got that in writing, gave it to the underwriter, and these folks were able to close on their home. Whereas before they were in a really rough place. So it was just a matter of saying, most often there's a way to make things work. Like if it makes sense to help someone and it's in their best interest, and they're the ones that can tell you if it's in their best interest, not you, then by all means, like, move forward with that. And I love it. Like I'm passionate about it. It lights me up. It just makes me excited to see people get into houses because it just means, I look at my own home sometimes I'm like, man, I can't believe I live here.
Right? That's
Mhm.
that it's that ability to kind of take that risk on ourselves and just it's like what do we get to do, what if it doesn't work? Well, if it doesn't work, you learn something, right?
Mhm.
My first house did not work. I didn't lose it, but man, it was hard, right?
Yeah.
It was 2006 when I bought it, and then the crash happens, and I didn't make any money when I sold it 10 years later. But I wasn't upside down, so it was like, okay, next time I'm going to learn something to make a better choice. And so we do learn a lot going through that process. How would you say that having both licenses and both experiences now in the lending and the real estate side helps you be more efficient, maybe, or a better service to the people you work with?
Really what it comes down to is perspective and understanding. I
Mm,
understand 80% of the process inside out and backwards,
mm,
and the 20% that I won't say that I'm a master at would be, I'm not a licensed title officer. And so there's some things in title that I understand how they work, but I don't have all the nuts and bolts. And so that's okay. I don't have any ambition at this time to get that license as well and at it. But it just has really helped me to be able to see things uniquely and say, oh, this is
mm,
why they need this. And I can see things
mhm,
coming down the pike because of my son, who's now 15, the one that has the medical
mhm,
issues.
mhm.
I had to develop spidey senses, right? And to be able to kind of see things coming down the pike and just to keep him alive and to keep him safe. So I'm always,
Wow.
um, you know, looking out for different things. The guy that we've talked about earlier, Brian, that we've referenced, part of his position in the Marines was having to be very intuitive and surroundings
Mhm,
aware due to his his particular mission and what he was assigned to do.
mhm,
And as we've talked, he's like, man, you're one of the most situationally aware people that I've ever met. And it's
mm,
because I had to become that way in order to keep my son alive because he would go into anaphylaxis on contact of different things. And so I had to know, what are you touching? Who had this? Who doesn't have this? And so just kind of building that up. And that's helped me
wow.
in my career because I'm like, this
Yep.
is coming down the pike, so how do we get in front of it? Because if we
Yeah,
can get
yeah.
in front of it and we can communicate well, then that's really helpful. And then so that helps me to be able to communicate on both sides. I primarily do mortgages now. I do
Mhm,
still a handful of real estate, but I'm primarily in mortgages. But I'm able to also talk to the real estate agents that I work with and say, have you tried this, or have you thought about this, or what
yeah.
if we look at this? And then they'll, I was, oh, I didn't think about that. And so it's nice because I was boots on the ground for a really long time in that part of the business, and so I really do understand it and understand it pretty well, and can give suggestions and help with that. And then I also, at the same time, am very aware of staying in my lane. And so when I'm working as a mortgage advisor for people, then I'll be able to say, hey, maybe you should ask your real estate agent this question. And so I might be able to help prompt them because in most things, when you don't do it very often, you know that you
Mhm,
don't know something, but you don't know what you
mhm.
don't know,
Yeah.
right? And so that's something that I think is unique in the situation that I'm in, is that I'm able to go back and say, hey, um, I might know the answer. And I won't say that, but I'll be like, I know the answer, but it's not my place to give it. And so, oh, have you thought about asking this? Or have you thought about talking
Yeah.
about this? And I think that that's an important thing. And if I make a mistake, especially in mortgages, I just blame you because a lot of the online training that I had to do involved you. So I just say, well, when I
That's
was going
fair, man.
through
That is fair.
hours and hours of this stuff, this guy
Yeah,
Nate, give him a call.
this
Here's his
guy.
number.
What a jerk, man. So I was looking at I got two questions kind of follow up as we kind of work our way through the process here. Number one, I want you to overcome the objection that somebody might be listening to this and going, "Pfft, Gary just got double licenses because he wants to get double paid. It doesn't sound like that's what you're trying to build or structure, but I'm kind of curious how you overcome, or why would you say that working with somebody who will do both parts of the transaction for you could be a greater benefit?
I think it just depends on alignment, really.
Mm,
That's what it comes down to. I am required by law to disclose that I'm
yep,
licensed in both in the states that I'm
that's right.
licensed in both. So, see, I listen in the compliance section.
Good job, man. That was a small test for you right there.
So in California and Tennessee are the only states that I'm dual licensed in. I'm licensed in additional states for mortgages, but
Hmm.
so I do share that. And then if someone's not represented, then at that point in one or the other, then I ask them just straightforward, how would you like me to help you? Do you want me to help you on the real estate side? Would you like me to help you on the mortgage side? Would you like me to help you on both? Like, it's up to you. We can kind of go through that, what that looks like, but it's
Yeah.
totally up to you. You know, what would you like to do? And just put it back in their court, so that's kind of the bottom line, with that is, how am I going to be able to serve you best? 100% didn't do it to double dip. I think in the 3 years in both states that I've been fully licensed, it took forever to get all the licenses activated. Um, I mean, maybe there's been 5 or 6 that I've actually done, both representation
Hmm.
and mortgage on the same transaction. And so it's been very minimal. But it's something that I can do, but just because you can do something doesn't necessarily mean that, you need to do it. So there's some states, as you know, that require you to have a real estate license in order to have an NMLS number.
Yeah.
So, and those folks don't practice, but they're duly licensed as well. And so I think it's a little bit of a fallacy, to be like, oh, are you myself or anyone else that might be duly licensed saying, oh, you're just in it to try to make the maximum. It's like, no, some of us are in it because it might be required to, or you
Right.
just might want to really understand the process. I was talking to a very active vetted VA mortgage originator just about a week ago. She and I had a great conversation. And she had said, she's like, I don't want to practice real estate, but I'm thinking about going to real estate schools just so that I understand,
Yeah, exactly.
and I was like, absolutely. Like, there's a great wisdom in that, I think.
It's interesting, and for those that would argue the point, like, oh man, they're just trying to get double money, they're just trying to make more cash on the transaction. It's like when you are so deep in this industry, and you learn a lot, right? Like I've learned a lot about residential real estate for being on the mortgage side, but in residential real estate, sometimes they learn a lot about mortgage if they're active in their processes. What But there's so much intricacy in every state, especially in real estate.
Absolutely.
Well, after the crash and the SAFE Act comes out 2010, right? We get all that after the financial crisis. It really kind of helped level set a lot of the states. Now every state has a somewhat specific disclosures. Maybe they've added some for the mortgage side. There's some small minutia, but for the majority of it, it's all based on RESPA, TILA. It's
Hmm.
all TRID. It's all integrated disclosure aspects, and they just adopt them their own way. Um, in that process, though, in real estate, I find a lot of just intricacies on which disclosures and where they go for and what actually time means. States
Hmm.
define time a little differently and
Absolutely.
days,
Yep.
which is so interesting to me and so hard. So I
Yeah.
can see the wisdom there, but I love your passion and kind of your service point on, I'm just serving. So if they want my help here, I will help them. If they don't, I'll help them, however they choose. That I love that. One of the best things I think that we ever learn from are the most memorable, and so become one of my favorite questions in this series is like, what is that transaction that you had that you learned the most? It could have been a positive or a negative, right? But what was something you took away, and from that point, it kind of changed the way you served or changed the way you even uh, consulted with your clients on doing processes?
Man, there's a lot. I mean, like
Yeah,
there's very few that have just been smooth. Most of
yeah,
them, there's been tremendous things that I've learned, and battles to be won. And I think that's what allows you to have longevity in this business, is that if you're willing to go to battle, right? You have to be willing to go to battle. You have to be willing to put away your own pride, ambitions, all the things, in order to say, let's roll up our sleeves and get to work. I shared with you how I got into real estate. And so
mhm,
my own transaction, was definitely such a pivotal moment in my own life, with
yeah,
Frank, my neighbor, that helped. But the one that's coming to mind right now, that there was a woman that actually was a referral. It was a transaction that another loan officer wasn't able to figure out. And so they asked if I could step in and help. And so I worked with her, and I was able to get her all ready to go. We got her clear to close, and I'm very particular about things, and so I like to move quick. And so we had her clear to close 2 weeks in advance, but being clear to close doesn't mean the lender's ready to fund and to
Right.
draw docs and all the things that go along with that. So we were clear to close, and I felt good about that. And I called to let her know. And then I went and dropped my kids off at school. I stopped by Home Depot because I'm still, even 3 years into my house, still working on building stuff at my house. So I stopped at Home Depot, and I got a phone call, and this client was crying. And I said, what's going on? She goes, I need to close this house today. And I was like, I'm sorry, I don't understand. She goes, I need to close this house today. And I said, well, we're clear, but we can't close for at least another 2 weeks. That's when we're scheduled. And we'd have to talk to the sellers and see what's going on. And she just said, Gary, I need to close this house today. And I could hear a sense of urgency in her voice. And I asked her, I said, what's going on? Like, what's going on? Like, we've had a good experience up to this point. Everything's on time. Like, what's happening? My house got broken into last night. My child was assaulted. The police don't know if the people are coming back. I need to get out of this house today. I need to close this house today.
Wow.
And I said, let me call you right back. And so I called the lender. I explained the situation, and I said, we need to get all hands on deck, and we need to get this lady out of her house immediately to protect her kids. And everybody came together and rallied the troops. We were able to get docs that day. We were able to fund that day. It was 100% financing, so there was no money coming from the veteran. And we closed her, and she brought her kids to go sleep in her new house that night. And they were able to sleep. So that one really stuck with me. That was something that, was one on the mortgage side, and on the real estate side, I had a lady call me, and it just, it was a cold call. So we always had to answer our phone because you just never know who's on the other line. And she called me, and she's like, I don't know if you remember me or not, but I came to an open house that you hosted 2 years ago, and I kept your card ever since. And I was like, no, ma'am, I don't really remember you. She's like, I was there with my mom, and my mom was older. And I started thinking back, and I was like, oh, I think I do remember, these folks. She's like, this is the house that we came to. And she goes, I kept your card because at that time I was living in my car. I didn't have any money. I didn't really have nice clothes. But when I walked in the door, you treated me as the same that you treated the next people that walked in their clothes that were dressed differently than me. And you answered my questions, you gave me the tour, and you made me feel human that day. That's what it was. You made me feel human that day. And she said, I've been living in my car. I've been saving my money. I've got $50,000 to put down on a new house. I've got a job that pays me $90,000 a year. I'm still living in my car because I wanted to do everything that it took to buy a house. Will you help me buy a house? And I helped her buy her first house. And then 2 years later, I helped her sell it. And then I helped her buy her next house that was her dream house. And she calls me G. And so we still talk. And she sends me cards. I send her cards every now and again. And she became friends with my wife. And so she'll just call me, hey, G, what's going on? How you doing? And so it's, she's a beautiful woman, and that sticks with me too. So the two lessons were with the first lady that I helped with the mortgage side, matter of, again, getting to the why, because if somebody just says, I have to close today, and it's like, that's just not possible. This lady's like, my kid's safety's at risk. Like, I can't literally sleep. And so it's a matter of saying, tell me what's going on. Be one thing. It's like, we really want to paint. Like, okay, are we really going to try to move mountains. Like, I'll do whatever I can, but that's a little bit different than someone that's in, not in a safe place with their kids. And then the other lady, just being able to be in a place of just treat people as humans, like a little kindness goes a long way. And you just don't know, like, it doesn't need to be about business. Like, there's plenty of people that walk in and out of your life that don't need, necessarily help with business. But I think we all need a little bit of help with humanity and just being able to see people as people.
Everybody's got a story, and sometimes when we get in the system, it's a little bit too long. Where we're in our job, we become jaded, right? We're always
Yeah.
dealing with emotion. We're always dealing with pressure. We're always dealing with somebody else's timeline, and sometimes you just want to be like, "Look, this is the timeline I told you. Why are you pushing me?" Right? And it takes that humanity reminder to go, we've got reasons. And what I found, and I'm just thinking of a transaction I've been helping somebody with right now, and we're just dealing with a little bit of emotional stress, and that emotional stress triggered some other stress from service. Let's just put it that way, right? I don't.
Hmm.
And it's just you can kind of see having the dialogue with them, and when they trust you enough just to open up a little bit, like, look, last time something like this happened, here's what was going on. You're like, okay, thank you. That helps me color a little bit. But I will tell you that internally, I felt a little chagrined that I needed that much reasoning to be more human about it. And I was like, okay, it's a good reminder, Nate. Like, there's always a reason. You don't have to know the reason. We
Yeah,
just have to try to be as forthright and upfront as possible to make sure that happens, and it gets through the way it needs to go. Well, Gary, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate everything you do in Veta VA. You have been a stalwart leader for us, a squad leader. You've ranked up. You provide your wisdom everywhere. You are so steady, and I appreciate that about you. I know your clients appreciate that about you, and I'm just excited to see where you're going to keep going as your career evolves and morphs with what you do, and your family grows, and you're such a great guy. So thank you for being a part of Veta VA, what we do in this community.
absolutely. So I want to ask you.
Uh-oh.
Now we're going to turn the tables. Dun dun dun. What's the most recent transaction that you've been involved with that involved more of a, uh-huh, I forgot this is why I got into this. So I want to
Oh.
hear that from you.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, I've shared before, but buying my first house when I was 26, just because it was the time, and I did 100% financing the wrong way. And I thought they made how much money on me, and I was managing for Starbucks. I thought, wow, I can make a good living on this to support my family. Um, but I remember some of those calls, just kind of some of those those calls, but those clients, they stick with you, right? And so I remember my first couple transactions. I remember people getting into homes. Um, but I'd say the one most recently, the one that stuck with me, is the one. Well, man, there's a lot, Gary. There's a lot. It's hard to pick your favorite. I think right now I'm working on one that's been a little bit challenging, and honestly, I wrote it off myself, and even consulted with the person, like, hey, now might not be the right time because you're having trouble clarifying what you want. You're having trouble identifying. You're asking fear-based questions. You're not making
Mm.
logical decisions, and they took it well, and they heard me, and then they came back and said, okay, we're hearing you. We hear what you said. Here's what we want. I'm like, okay, we can work with that because you're clear now. You're clear on what you want, not what you're worried about. And that helps me help you in dialoguing about what we do next. With that decision done, then they were able to look kind of forward, and we set up an entire game plan. I mean, they're using their VA loan. They're moving to a state where disability covers, and cancels out their escrow. So we'll have all that taken
Awesome.
care of for them too, right? So taxes are cleared, and even their realtor called me at one point and says, "Why are they settling here? Why aren't they getting the bigger house they could afford with has more of the bells and whistles they want instead of like setting a smaller property and planning on building these?" I said, really, it comes down to longevity. They're thinking through what it means to them for the lifestyle they want to have, and they're making the right call. This is the right call for them. They've got a little bit of property, they've got the space for the RV, like the trailer that they're going to be living in, like uh, or they have lived in, I should say. And so that for me was it has been such a good reminder of, yeah, they're not slam dunk easy files. They're ones that take time and presence
Mhm.
and attention and truth and honesty, where I can even call them and say, I understand what you're saying. I cannot guarantee you that timeline because here's how this works. Now, I will guarantee you we are working on it. I will keep you updated, right? They wanted to move their closing date up 2 weeks. And it made sense,
Mhm.
but I told them all the things that could be standing in our way, but here's how we're going to go. And having that level of clarity, and they're like, okay, now that we know that's what it takes, we understand, but can we still work on it? I'm like, 100%. But just
Yeah.
know, like, this is where my updates will be. And so I'm excited for them to close in a week, less than a week, actually. I'm excited for them to have this property closer to their family and their grandchild,
It's awesome.
for what that means. But yeah, I think the other one that I've been working on, it took a year and a half for my parents building a
Mhm.
house on
Yeah.
my property.
I'm following
um,
that a little bit. Yeah.
yeah, the VA OTC loan, the one-time closed construction loan, is amazing, but uh, owning the property myself, having to figure out how to reorganize it so I could actually gift them the acreage to build on, having my dad use his VA benefit that he earned from his service in Vietnam, um, the construction process, the I've learned so much that was, even though I could read it and logically understand it, theoretically know how to talk about it and put it into practice, man, operationally doing it it's a stressor. And now we're in the middle of construction. I'm actually watching walls go up this week and out there and having the general contractor asking me questions. I'm like, I'm not even GCing this and I have to be available regularly going like,
Yeah.
should this wall be moved? We did this.
Didn't
Now we're
they
walking it out on the plaid.
I think didn't they call it one time close because after you do it one time, you'll never do it again? Isn't that how it got the name?
Makes you wonder, right? Yeah, no, it's yeah, one time just so you have to deal with the paperwork wise. That's all. The rest of it's like, holy smokes, okay. But anyway, those are the couple. So thanks for the question though. I
Absolutely.
appreciate that. Well,
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen, you've enjoyed this episode with us and with Gary. If you want to find out more about him, you're going to find him on the vetavia.com map on Tennessee. He's licensed in more than that state, but go to Tennessee, you'll find his contact info. Reach out to him. As you can tell, he'll answer questions if you need his help, like professionally or not. If you got questions, he's
Absolutely.
there for you. You'll find him in the group. Just look for Gary Foote, but that's Foot with an E, Foote. And you'll find him all over Facebook and social media. So, Gary, thank you so much for being on here and sharing your story.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. All right. Well, until next time, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you in the podcast or we'll see you online. VetaVA on Facebook or vetavia.com. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the VetaVA podcast, Your Journey Home. We hope this information has been helpful, enjoyable, engaging, supportive. But here's the biggest call to action for you. If you are a veteran, a service member, a family member of the same, and you have earned or have access to the VA home loan eligibility and have questions, please feel free to join us at VetaVA on Facebook. Go to facebook.com, search for the VetaVA group, and you'll find it. Answer some of the questions to enter, and once you do that, you're good to go. If you're a professional, a real estate agent, lender, insurance agent, you know the drill. Well, as a professional, we'd love to have you join the professionals only group. We do all the same information, but at a little bit different scope because, well, of how you're coming into that information to support yourself and the other consumers that you work with. So please join VetaVA on Facebook or VetaVA for Professionals on Facebook. Follow us on TikTok, wherever you can find it. And as always, all the white papers, the resources, the documents, and the training, the free training courses are available at vetavia.com. You'll find them all there. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. My email is nathan@vettedva.com. I'm the COO, and I'm ready to help. Glad you tuned in for this episode, and looking forward to bringing you the next one. Take care.